And today we're so excited because we've invited an amazing speaker, presenter, and educator, not to mention child advocate. Dr. Joy Springer is a colleague of mine, and she is the Director of Teacher Education at the University of Laverne. But from a very practical standpoint, I'll let her tell you about her own life and her knowledge base because of her own children and the school experience, but also that she oversees teachers in our local public schools and getting them to connect with families. So Joy has a wealth of information and knowledge. So with no further ado, because the wisdom is coming from Dr. Joy Springer today, I introduce you, Joy. I welcome you, and I thank you for joining our care provider training group.
Well, I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for having me. As Dr. Kay mentioned, my name is Joy Springer, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about one of my favorite topics, which is school. I'm a person who has been invested and really connected to lots of different angles of the school system. And I'm going to talk today about what we can do as people in the community to really help children that we serve connect with the school system. Before I get started, I want to make sure, can you give me a thumbs up if you're seeing my presentation? We okay? Fabulous. And then also I just wanted to let everyone know that sometimes when I'm presenting, the screens get a little bit wonky. So if at any point I'm talking about something and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I'm seeing, please come off mute and let me know. I appreciate it because I want to make sure that we're all in line with what we're doing today to talk about promoting school success.
Joy, hey, Joy, do you want it on slideshow mode so it's larger, or do you like it on this mode?
I would like it so that I can see
connection. This is Mary.
I got you.
Are you not able to see?
It's perfect.
No,
it's perfect. I was just checking. Thank you.
Can I get your telephone?
Mary, yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so here we go. All right, so my name is Joy, as mentioned, and I picked this picture of my family rather than just the picture of me that I usually use when I'm talking about all things work related. And the reason I did so is because I'm coming to you today as a professor. As Dr. Kay mentioned, I do direct and teach in the teacher education program for the University of Laverne. I've been in higher education working with future teachers for going on 20 years. This is my 20th year. And prior to that, I taught kindergarten and third grade in the public school system. So I've been in the field for some time. But I think when I really started to understand the value of homeschool connection was when I had my own children. I have 4 children. They are 19, 18, 15, and 13. Yeah, that's correct. And as is the case with all children everywhere, my children are very, very different. So my daughter, who is on the right in this picture, she is a sophomore in college. She is a college athlete. She did all the things by the book in school, right? She did all the AP classes. She did all the SATs. She applied to all the schools, all the things, right? She was just very, very into it. My second son, he's on the far left, Maddox, he's 18. He doesn't really love many things about school, right? Does anybody have any connections with children like that? He is actually involved in a magnet school within his high school, which is focused on construction and building. He has found wonderful connections there and learned how to weld and do architecture and things like that, because that is really what makes him come to life. So he is actually going to be an LA County lifeguard. He's going to start that this summer after he graduates from high school in June. So then my third son, who is back on the right, his name is Curran. He has a lot of exceptional learning needs. So he was born very premature. And as a result of some of that birth trauma, he has apraxia, which means that he didn't learn how to talk until he was almost three and a half. And that created some challenging behaviors because of his inability to communicate. Also, he has an exceptionality called sensory integration dysfunction, which means that certain textures, certain tastes, certain sounds really amp him up more than they would for most. So we have gone through the IEP process with him. He has received services through special education with the school district. So that's my third. And then my fourth, back on the other end, his name is Dash. And I would say that he is pretty typical learner. He kind of just shows up, does his thing. He's not super excited about being there, but he does it. And I guess we'll see what his pathway is like in high school. So I share all of that with you because I want to let you know that when I'm talking to you today, I understand very much that all children are very, very beautifully different, right? And the school system has pathways to serve lots of different students. So I know that all of you are serving a huge range of students in our communities, and I'm so thankful for that. For some of you, it might be your biological children, and for some of you, you're serving children in different capacities. No matter what, I hope that you'll be able to find some nuggets in this presentation today, because my frame, just so you know, is that education is a civil right. It is something that all children in our community should have full access to at all times. And so that's really my objective today, is just to talk from that lens of how can we make pathways to connect all learners with their school in the best way possible. One other thing I wanted to share on this slide is the University of Laverne is an MSI, meaning that we are a minority serving institution. That is a federal designation where we commit to serving high percentages of students from diverse backgrounds. And further, we are also part of a federal program called the Branch Alliance for Educator Diversity, where we are really striving to remove barriers that make it difficult for students from diverse backgrounds to engage with schools. So you will also hear me speaking often through this presentation from the lens that all children benefit when we have a diverse teaching force, when we are maximizing the diverse gifts of all of our populations. So that's just a little bit about me as we're talking. All right, so just a couple of housekeeping things. I know we've all been on 1 million Zoom calls, right? That's just all we do. It's just Zoom all of the day. But it's really helpful for me if you could mute. Oops, sorry, friends. My presentation just blipped for a sec. All right, are we okay? You're still seeing my screen? Great, okay. You can use the chat box, which down at the bottom, there's a button that says chat if you have a question, and I will be excited to respond to that either in the moment or when it comes up. And then also there is going to be a section in a second where I'm going to ask you to do some reflection or journaling about some of the things that are happening in your world. So if you could have paper or pen, or you can also journal on your computer, whatever is more convenient for you, that would be really helpful for me and for what we're going to do next. And then last thing, just as kind of a frame before I really jump into the content, you're going to notice in my presentation that I refer to your children often, right? And I just want you to know, and I actually learned this from Dr. K. I've known Dr. K for a long time. I don't know how long, but a long time. And early on in our relationship, I adore her, but I think I said something, a statement about someone else's child. And she said to me, you know, all children belong to all of us. Right? Children are kind of like community property because we all need to invest in all the children of the world. And it really stuck with me. And I believe that in the core of my being. So when I'm talking about your children, our children, it's the collective, right? I'm not speaking about just your biological child or just the child you serve. I'm talking about children as a whole. So I hope that you'll understand that when I'm going through the presentation and know that that's where my heart's at. Okay, so enough about that, right? So much talking. So I am going to drop a link in the chat right now so that we can do a little opening activity. So this is a virtual pin board that is called a Jamboard. And when you click on this link, which is in the chat right now, it should take you to a page that looks just like this. I'm going to switch over to that page now, but while I'm doing so, if you could just click on this link, you should be able to get there too. And if you're having trouble, don't worry, we can help you, or you can also copy and paste. But again, the goal is just to click right on this link. All right, so this tool again is called a Jamboard. It is free with the Google Suite. So for my friends who are people who conduct Zoom meetings, it's a really cool tool if you ever want to check it out, because it does let you see in real time what people might have to say. Can anyone let me know, are you able to see it? Were you able to get in? I see 6 people are in. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Jamboard. You can keep trying to link on that, click on that link. And then if you have trouble, I can help you. Good, we are up to 7 now, 8 now. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so my question today to get us started is we're heading into the second semester. My high school students are taking finals today and the rest of this week. I know in some school districts, students are already taking finals. Our younger students are just about at the 90-day of school, which means they're halfway there. So as we head into this next time, I just think it's really important to acknowledge that there's this is a really interesting time in school, right? There's a lot of external factors that are impacting what happened in schools each day. So I thought it might be nice for us just to take a moment and pause and spend some time thinking about what feels heavy to us and what is giving us hope as we head into this second part of the year. And I'm going to show you exactly how this tool works, because I really love it, and it will facilitate our discussion and hopefully give you a tool. So over here on the left, there's this toolbar, and we're going to use 2 of the tools today. The first one is a picture. So let's say what's heavy. To me, if I'm thinking about what's heavy and I click on this add image, probably in no surprise to anyone, COVID is pretty heavy in my life right now. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to give me a nice image of COVID. Now see these, I can resize it, I can move it, because COVID is something that's heavy to me. Now, another way you can do it if you don't want to look through the library for pictures is you can click a sticky note right here on the left. See this sticky note? So I'm thinking about something that gives me hope, and I'm going to pick green because my son's school is green. So my son is in the class of 2022. And I have a lot of hope about youth these days. I think they're pretty awesome and invested and passionate about things. So I'm going to say that what's giving me hope is the class of 2022. And look, it went over on the heavy side, but I'm going to move it to the hope side. So I would love it if the 10 people who are in this room, and again, if you're having trouble, come off mute and we can help you. But I would love it if you could add what's feeling heavy to you and what's giving you hope as you think about school for the rest of this year. Yep, there's another COVID related. I agree with you there. Whoever posted that, yes. And remember right here, there's a sticky note and then the image. Either of those options can work. So we'll just take a couple minutes for people to spend some time thinking. Yes, another graduate. Oh, nice. Pictures are coming up. Make sure you move them through the side they belong. Great. Good job, guys. Yeah, building resilience is helpful. Oh, okay. Yeah. Great job. Grades. Grades are always a stressor. Very nice, friends. Okay, so worries about the vaccine, worries about pregnancy. We're seeing faith and resilience on the hope side. Job stress, yep. Very good job, guys. So I'm a college professor, and we use this tool a lot with our students. And generally, it takes them a long time to figure it out, and you guys are just killing it. So nice work.
Hey, Joy, are you the only one who's able to like resize it?
No, if you click on the picture, you can resize it, but I can also.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So the reason why, and you guys can keep playing around with this if you'd like to, I'm going to switch back to the other presentation, but this will still stay up. As I think it's really important for us when we're talking about schools or anything that is a collective body to start by thinking about the humanity of the situation, right? We all are carrying so much right now. You can tell by this presentation that we have lots of people who are worrying about some very real things. And that's the same for our students too, right? They are worried. Their teachers are worried. There's just a lot of external pressure that makes it difficult for us to show up as our best selves. So I think one of my my best takeaways, and I will tell you, and Dr. K can say that this is true. I was so upset by the way school changed when COVID happened. Like probably, if you know 100 people, I might have been the most upset or the second most. Like again, because of my passion for what schools do for children. But I've come to really realize that being human means that we can be upset and know that sometimes the school situation isn't ideal because of external factors, and we can still value and respect and support educators and administrators and our students, because let's just be real, this is hard. This is really, really hard. And if you look at this Jamboard, look at the things that people are carrying right now, right? It's a lot. But we can also acknowledge that and also see that beautiful things are ahead for us, right? We're still allowing students to graduate. We're still giving students a chance to connect. We're still moving forward, even with all of the challenges. And so I think it's really important when we're interacting with schools to just acknowledge the pressures and still look forward with hope. So thanks for connecting with me that way. That was fun. All right. So I'm also a super data nerd. I love to read research. It's like a weird thing that nobody likes to do, but I do. And so I just wanted to take a second and point out that if people have any curiosity or are wondering if it really matters if our students are connected at school, I actually think COVID was interesting that way because it really brought to light that when the school system is not there, there's a lot of gaps, right? But even with that, there's huge bodies of research that show that when families or caregivers are engaged in the school systems, student success is follows right beside it. So in fact, there was a really big study that showed that in all of the high school dropouts in the year 2015, out of the top 3 reasons why they dropped out of school, family disengagement was in the top 3, meaning that they didn't feel like school was really that important to their family. And so that was a huge contributing factor. So the other data point that I put at the bottom, but I think it's really interesting, is the research has also shown that you don't have to be the PTA president for this engagement to be valuable. Even moderate levels of engagement can really make a huge difference to students' attendance, students' engagement, students' behavior. So we can make tiny steps towards engagement that can make a huge impact on our students. And I think that's encouraging personally, because I don't know about you, but there's a lot going on all the time, right? All right. And then I think it's also important to acknowledge the challenges before we start talking about solutions. So if we know that it's really powerful for students to get the most out of their school system, and that one of the ways to get the most out of the school system is to have family or community engagement, why don't we all do it? Seems obvious, right? Well, there are issues. Time is a huge issue, right? We're all working, we're all doing all kinds of things. We have competing priorities. So sometimes, speaking for myself, I'm just so thankful when I can just drop my sons off at school and focus on my day, right? And be like, y'all focus on them for a minute. I've done it for enough. So time is a challenge. Also safety, both physical safety and COVID-related safety precautions have really made it hard for families to connect in the traditional ways that we did before when we had more access to schools. So that's a big challenge with connection. Communication can be a challenge. Sometimes schools, to be honest, don't do a great job of saying what they need us to do, right? They don't give us a clear way to connect or a clear pathway for support. So that's a challenge. Another thing that can really impact student and family connections at school is when we don't speak the dominant language. There are a lot of resources that schools have for language learners or people who speak a different language other than English. But as to my third point, sometimes those aren't communicated well and it can be a barrier. So schools really need to focus on increasing their cultural sensitivity so that all families are welcome. And then I think the last point is something that we might all be able to connect with. So I told you that I taught kindergarten, right? That was one of my first jobs. And honestly, if I won the lottery, I might go back to do it. I loved it. Just sing all day, kids give you hugs and tell you you're beautiful. It's amazing. They also put boogers on you and pee their pants, but I don't care about that. So anyways, I think that when I taught kindergarten, I really realized that a lot of people are scared of children, right? I would say, hey, I would love it if some parents could come in and read books with students or do the center with students. And people would be like, no, 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 no. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid. I don't feel like I could contribute in that way. And so I just want to reinforce that it is challenging for people who are outside of the school system to find a way to connect. And so hopefully in this presentation, I will give you some of those that are less stressful and don't involve you getting snot wiped on your pants. Something, I don't know. All right, so here we go. I would love if you could start off by just taking 3 or 4 minutes to jot a little list about what you are doing or what you have seen others do to help students engage with the school system. So here's an example. Maybe you are going to sporting events. If you have a secondary student, maybe you're plugging in and going to some of those sporting events. Maybe you're looking at the website and seeing what they post as far as their announcements go. Can you just jot down a list of 4 or 5 things that either you've done or that you've seen others do to try to engage with the school system? No wrong answers.
Joy, do you want those in the chat box or on our own paper?
On your own paper would be great. And I'm not collecting them, so no stress. But we are going to interact with them in a second. We'll just give it about 2 more minutes.
And Dr. Springer, I do see a couple of great ones coming through on the chat. So we can touch base on those as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, email their teachers, check the school website, connect with the school counselor. Yes, check grades. Man, I'm so thankful that there weren't those grade checkers when I was in school. It's a lot. I'm like to my third son, why did you not turn your math homework in? Like, oh my goodness, if my mom had been able to see that for me, bad idea. Okay, very good. All right, so I'd love for you to take a look at your list and think about the 2 categories that there are for family involvement that have been shown to be the most impactful. So there's lots of different ways that we can engage with the school, of course, but I wanted to bring your attention to 2 categories: family involvement and family engagement. And of course, this could be subbed out with community. These family involvement is the second most impactful, and family engagement the most impactful categories for how we can help our students connect. So family involvement is when the school gives us a strategy and we take it. So this would be like showing up for a sporting event, going to open house, checking grades on cue, connecting with the website to get updates. It's a kind of situation where we are involved, but our voice is not included. So we're receiving information, and that's helpful, right? Because it informs what we do next, but it isn't giving us a 2-way path of communication. So it's good. It's a good thing, but it's not a great thing, because all of you and your students and your families have value, and we want to be able to hear your voice in schools. So family engagement is the second category, and that's where it's 2-way. So that would be like making a phone call and talking to the school counselor and sharing what's going on at your house and what you're seeing with your student, so that they can really frame their interactions from the truth of what's happening at home, right? It could also be a situation where you're participating in a focus group or a meeting, or something where it's 2-way. So I would say that the majority of the things that we do at school are involvement, right? We want to be involved, we want to connect, and that's good. Again, don't hear me saying that's bad. But I also want to bring to light that some of the things we do are also engagement, which is in that even more impactful category, where we really bring our students' voices to frame the conversation. So when you're looking at your list, I want you to put an I next to things that are family involvement and an E next to things that are family engagement. So look at your list. Are the things that you're seeing involvement or engagement? Remembering that both are very good, but we would love to push for some things in the engagement level. Yeah, I see a great comment from Becky about using Schoology to stay updated with grades. Yeah. My children go to school in Ventura County and we use Canvas, but I think it's a pretty similar idea. Okay. Awesome. So while you're sorting out your lists, I'm going to dig in and hold on to that list because we're going to share it in just a second. Jackie, I'm going to do this slide and then the next slide will be the breakout groups. Okay, so here we go. Finally, I'm going to give you something tangible we can do instead of setting the stage forever. So here are two categories of things that we can do in our homes, in our communities, that are really all about us, led by us, that make a huge difference for students in schools. The first thing we can do is we can help our children show up healthy when they walk through the door. We can make sure that they are sleeping, that they have a steady food source. Either you're giving them breakfast or lunch, or you're helping them know where they can get breakfast and lunch at school. Right now, remember, in the state of California, all schools are providing free breakfast and free lunch, and in many cases, free snack, free dinner every single day. So it's wonderful, but there are so many students who just don't know about it, right? So we can really help our students because we know, I mean, when I'm hangry, I'm of no use to anyone, and students are the same. So we want to make sure that they know about that and that they're getting their sleep. Also making sure that they are going to the doctor, they're going to the dentist, so that all of these very basic needs, there's this theorist called Maslow, and he's really right. His theory has stood the test of time, where he said, if you're hungry, if your tooth hurts, if you're sleepy, if you have a stomach ache, you are not going to care about multiplication. It doesn't matter how great the multiplication lesson is, those things are going to trump everything. So from home, we can do a really do a good job for our students if we take care of those things and take them out of the equation. All right, the second thing I wanted to talk about that is fully contained by us is home environment. So we can ask our kids, what'd you do at school today? Do you have any projects coming up? Is there anything I can help you with? Do you have homework? You can give them a quiet place to go and do their work. I know that in some of our homes, that's hard to come by. So I've seen a lot of families where maybe they have a quiet space and they take turns, like Dr. K, you're from 3 to 3:30. Dr. J, you're from 3:30 to 4. And you got to get your work done and bust out because your siblings need the quiet space, right? But establish a place where kids can go and focus and do their work if they have homework. Also having a routine, like we eat dinner at this time, we do our homework before dinner, we have technology turned off at this time. Whatever that looks like for your family is really up to you and how you like to run things. But the important piece for kids is that it's consistent. So, if you could just decide for this season, we're going to come home, we're going to have a snack, we're going to do homework, we're going to eat dinner, and then you can have an hour of screen time or whatever that looks like. Again, the particulars aren't as important as the routine, because when children know what to predict, it takes a ton of stress off of them, right? And they've gone through their day at school, so they already don't have a ton of reserve for navigating uncertainty. So the more we can continue those routines in our home, the better for our kiddos. And that applies to age 4 all the way to age 18, right? Also, you can set up situations at your house where you're showing kids that what they're learning actually matters, or reinforcing topics that are happening at school. So, some of the people in the chat were saying that they're plugging into Schoology to see what students are learning. So maybe you're seeing that your student is learning about fractions. So maybe then you're going to have them help you with dinner and be like, oh, well, this is a fourth. Look, 2 of these 1/4 cups equal a half cup, so that they're seeing it in real time and being like, oh, this is more than just the worksheet that I brought home that my teacher wants me to do. This is actually something that we could do in real life. Another way that I love to do that is if my students or if my children are learning about something, maybe I can take them to see it happening in real life. So, we live in a wonderful community. We have missions we can drive to. We have beaches we can see, ecosystems at work. So plug in with your students in step 1, and then see how you can reinforce that in your conversations at home. That really helps them when they're able to connect. And then this last one, I think, is probably my best tip for what we are in full control of at our house. So whenever so since I was a kindergarten teacher, people ask me all the time, oh my gosh, baby Joey is going to kindergarten. What should I do? Does he need his letters? Does he need his numbers? I've had him do 44 workbooks. He's totally ready. And you know what I tell them? Teach baby Joey to put on his own jacket and to open his own juice box, and if possible, to put his shoes on and off. Teachers will handle the academics, friends. That's what they are trained to do. You don't need to be doing flashcards in the back of the van, right? I mean, you can if your kid is into it, but that's not actually it. But what's really, really helpful is if they show up ready to learn, and they know how to hang up their own backpack, and they know how to, follow 1 and 2 step directions. So very simple things with your young ones, like when we're finished with dinner, we're going to bring our plate over to the sink and we're going to throw our napkin in the trash. Now, I know what you're saying. It would be so much easier for me to take the plate and the napkin because they're going to drop the plate and it's going to make a mess. And yes, I know, I get it, right? But the only way that we're going to help our students show up ready to get that academic information is if we scaffold those life skills, and we can do that well from home, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to give you guys a chance to meet some of the other amazing people in this call. And what I'd like you to do when you get into your group is introduce yourself and share one thing that you've done, maybe from this list, or maybe just another idea from your list that you've been writing. One thing that you've tried to do to encourage student engagement and how it's gone for you. So we're just going to take about 5 minutes in these rooms because I think it's really important for you to connect, and then we'll come back together. So Jackie, you can open the rooms whenever you're ready. Sarah, everybody's good. Okay, good. Friends, if you're still here and you're having trouble with the group, just going to your group, just come off mute and we can help you. How are we doing, Dr. K? You're on mute, friend.
We are doing excellent. I see that some of these individuals were invited. Is this one group, Jackie, or have they just stepped away, or do you know?
They may have
Jenny?
to do it. Oh,
Okay.
Honoria's Spanish group. but everybody's been assigned to a group. They just haven't accepted yet.
Okay. Because like you say, Dr. J, they can unmute here and we can brainstorm with them.
There it goes. Honoria.
Honoria.
That's a beautiful name. I haven't seen
Mhm.
that. All right. Well, sometimes people have to step out, so that's no worries.
That's right. It's going excellent. I was just making sure I had the title for Sent to Greens training, but from your introduction, the title she gave me is Understanding Sensory Integration and Sensory Processing Behaviors in Children.
I need to
Strategies
attend. I need
for
to attend.
responsive support. It's so funny. She was so excited to build off of this and go into that. And then when you did your introduction, I was like, Dr. J better come to Sent to Greens. That's going to be the perfect tag on.
Well, perfect. Good. I love it.
It's 11:17 and she'll be here at 11:45.
Great.
Time flies quickly, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
I love the engagement versus involvement activity.
Thanks.
And I love have your children focus on day-to-day capabilities versus you teaching them all the subject matter. And I don't think a lot of people pay attention to that. That's why I love where France got rid of homework, right? And
Right.
President
That
of
would be
France is like,
that would literally be my dream come true.
Yeah.
Because it's
he's
so
like,
dumb.
school is so much more, learning is so much more than going home and doing 4 hours of homework.
And it's so inequitable, right? Because like some people have like a tutor doing
inequitable.
the whole dang thing. It's so dumb. Makes me
Yeah.
crazy.
It is so inequitable. I mean, as an educator, my kids had a full on, oh, it looks like people are coming back or just joining us.
Looks like Joanne just joined us. Joanne, do you want to explain what we're doing? I can assign her to a group.
Yeah, you know what? Hi, Joanne. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We are in breakout rooms right now, and we're just about to come back. So if you want to just hang out for another minute, we're gonna jump back in. So Jackie, if you want to close them at 11:20, and then they'll be back at like 11:21, that's perfect.
So the inequity piece, Joy, because my living room was a cupboard full of school supplies, all the snacks, homework hour, myself there as a tutor, you know, the whole thing on, where it became most of the kids in the neighborhood because they didn't have that same, you know, opportunity. Just makes a difference.
Huge, huge difference.
Right. We talk about the disparities and or inequities around the clock in different areas of life, but thinking just narrow it down to something like that. And it's like, wow, you know, and when you talked about food, making sure that they have a meal within them. I had young girls across the street that lived there and they weren't getting fed and their grades were pummeling and their mom didn't know why. And so we just started making them breakfasts and take, you know, here's Kylie's lunch and Logan's lunch and your lunch.
Exactly. Well, I know. And, you know, yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I have my sweet little neighbor and he lives with his grandparents and they're wonderful, but they don't understand how to advocate for him. Right. And so he gets considerably less because of that. And that is really problematic to me.
That's a reality.
Yeah.
So they'll be coming about 20 seconds. I the room
Great.
already.
Great, great, great.
I'm going to text Senta to make sure she's on track. Like she needs me tracking her.
I'm sure she will appreciate that. Welcome back, friends. Welcome back. Awesome. Well, I hope you got to meet some cool people in your group. Is there anyone who'd like to come off mute and tell us a cool strategy that was shared? No.
Joy, I was in a group. This is Denise Fritsch. I was in a group with Marlene Hughes and I loved her strategy. We were talking about time management with kids, and she was saying that they have, and Marlene, jump in if I don't say it exactly how you did, but I loved that strategy where if there's something that's distracting her from what it is she's supposed to be doing, like the example of homework, and it's her phone she's on instead of doing her homework, and it's her start of homework is delayed by 10 minutes, then her cell phone is taken away for that 10 minutes to encourage her to stay on task and use time management.
I like it.
Did I do that justice, Marlene?
I love it. And I am all about logical consequences, right? Or things that I like to call it reality therapy in my house, right? So that's a really great strategy. Okay, are we seeing my screen again? Cool. Okay, well, thank you for sharing your ideas. I think that it's really important to always remember that we are surrounded by amazing people in our community. So it's always good to share collective understanding. So here are a couple of ways that are a little bit more of a middle step, meaning that our first slide were pretty much all things we can do all on our own, in our homes, in our environments. This one is more of that next step, or that involvement piece that we talked about, right? Involvement and engagement. So in an involvement area, we can plug in with what our school is offering. We can understand how our school pushes out information. So speaking from my high schooler and middle schooler, every Sunday, their principals send out an email with the key information for that week. And it is part of my routine that on Sunday, I commit to reading that so that I know, oh, like, for example, today, one kid went to school at 9, another one's got to get picked up at 1:15. You know, they're always changing those start and end times, but I have it in my personal routine to read the information that the school sends so that I'm aware of what's happening. The same is true with key calendar dates. In the very beginning of the year, another routine that I have just embedded in my life is when I get that back to school packet, I sit down and I put every single date that they give me on the calendar, because I am the queen. You know, I work in higher ed, but my calendar doesn't match my kids. So before I would do that, I can't tell you how many times the kids would be like, whoa, it's spring break. And I'm like, huh? It's not my spring break. Like, what are you talking about? So it's really important to understand the dates and the things that are happening. That will also help you to block out time for important events like back to school night, like parent teacher conferences. If you sit down in August and put all this on your calendar, then you're less likely to be double booked for these very important things that you really want to participate in. Another thing that you can do to plug in is volunteer. Now, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, that there are stressors that make it difficult for us to volunteer sometimes. Stressors like we have jobs, stressors like we don't feel like we know what to do, or maybe we don't feel like we could contribute well. But I will tell you that the research has shown that if your child or the child that you're serving sees you engaged in the school, even if it's something so silly like showing up to chaperone a dance, right? Like, we can all do that. We can all sit in the back and fill up water cups, right? Like, I can do that. Or even coming to help assemble packets, or using your talents or your gifts to help with the school. It really shows two things. It shows your students that your time, which is very valuable, is worth donating to the school. That sends a very strong message. And second, it helps you see things from a different frame. So I use the homecoming reference because I have some neighbors, and they have a whole bunch of kids, same as me, at the school. And they did that homecoming dance volunteer thing. And the mom told me after, she said, you know, I've been a parent for like 18 years, and I learned more about my kid and their day-to-day in that 3 hours of that homecoming dance than I ever did in all of the other experiences put together, right? So if you can take the time to insert yourself into that environment, it really will help your interactions and your frames. And then the last one with plug in is if you're reading, if you're paying attention, if you're going to the meetings, you're going to start hearing about resources and systems and structures that could really help your child. So I'm going to give an example. At the comprehensive high schools in my area this year, they started to have something called wellness rooms, understanding that students are having a really hard time with social emotional regulation. They have wellness rooms that are in place. And so I participate in a couple of different organizations at the school where I had heard about these wellness rooms, and they have wellness counselors. They're using federal funding, ESSER funding, to pay for this resource for students. So shortly after I heard about that, I had another friend or mom that I ran into, and she was telling me that her child had been cut from the basketball team. And he had always played basketball, and he was just devastated, and he was really having a hard time. And she was worried about him because she just saw him kind of spiraling from this disappointment. And so I said to her, hey, have you thought about having him use the wellness room? And she said, wellness room? What are you talking about? What does that mean? Right? She was able to get him engaged, get him in some groups, get him to help get some support in that way. So it's just a really great reminder that sometimes there are lots of resources happening at the school, but we don't know about them. So if we are following the communication chains and trains, sometimes we can find really great nuggets that can help our students. So plugging in is really important. I think the next piece is part of plugging in, but if involvement was the first part, now we're moving into engagement, right? And we know that engagement is the most powerful way we can connect. So I think that it's really important that if you have a concern, to reach out sooner than later, because sometimes we hope that things will improve. We think that we have an assumption that everyone is aware of information that we know. And what I have found is that you'll never be sorry by over communicating, right? Worst case scenario, the answer you're going to get is, oh yeah, we already knew that, or this is how we're handling it. And then everyone feels better because we're on the same page, right? So it's always a good idea to communicate and reach out to the school so that they know what's happening. You can also follow the key decision-making groups for your school or for your district. So an easy way that I do that is I really like Twitter. I don't know if any of you are on Twitter, but I follow our school board has a Twitter account, and someone posts key things from their agendas, their meetings, whatever. So I'm like, oh, this is what's happening from the top. Right? Oh, our school district just got COVID kits for every student, and they're going to be distributing them on Saturday or whatever, right? So try to figure out how you can tune in, not just with the micro of your school, but for the bigger organization with the district or even the county. And then if there's something that is really exciting or that you're passionate about, speak into it, because again, schools exist to serve the communities that they're in, and the ways that schools know what that should look like is by hearing our voices. So considering speaking into that is really important. Becky, did you have a question, friend?
More of kind of like an input, I guess.
Great.
Because I have my two nieces, 4 and 2, and the 4-year-old goes to Head Start 4 days a week. And I'm the type of person I communicate, through email, through phone, with
Good.
teachers, counselors, very involved at school. And I think schools need to understand that not every child has a parent. They either have a grandparent caring for them, an aunt, a foster family. I had an experience where one of my niece, she made something for the holidays, and the teacher just kind of like she yelled out to all the rest of us like, oh, the kids made you, you parent something. And I told my niece, I was like, who do you want to give it to? I gave her the option.
Yeah.
And just to make a long story short, it would be nice if the schools would acknowledge that not every child has, you know, their mom or dad. You know, they're being raised by either a caregiver, a foster parent, a family member, and you know, it's hard on kids, you know, so that would
Thank you.
be
Thank you for sharing that, Becky. And first, thank you for filling in that gap for your nieces.
yeah.
What a wonderful, I can tell that you are a wonderful human who's loving on them well. So thank you.
Good, thank you.
I want you to know that we are doing our very best in training teachers to understand that their words matter, and
Yes.
that things like parents are can be very othering, and to try to use language like who's the adult at your house, or things that are more inclusive. So we are definitely working on that. And I think to the point of communication and advocacy, please do continue to share that with your teacher so that it is on the forefront of their mind, right? Because we do make these assumptions that every family looks a certain way, and that is more and more not the case. So thank you for bringing that up. And that kind of goes to the don't be afraid to ask for more, right? Like your situation requires specific consideration, and you should be empowered to share that and ask for that support.
Joy, you have some people agreeing in the chat box. Thank you, Becky. I agree completely. I do wish everyone could use the word caregiver, because that does include everyone, bio, parent, or not. So Becky, you brought forth a really good concept for this group.
Yes, very good. And I'm going to use it to reinforce what I'm telling my students, because, you know, sometimes they don't believe me. So thank you, Becky. That's awesome. I also want to say that when we're reaching out, I really want to encourage everyone who is on this call to reach out to schools, but to always start with the teacher, right? Often parents are frustrated, or they don't know who to reach out to, and so they start at the top, right? Maybe with the principal, maybe even with the district office. And if you think about how that promotes connection and communication, it's from an adversarial place, right? Because if you're getting an email forwarded from your principal, already your tentacles are up, right? So if you have a concern, if you have something to share, I'm not saying you can't continue up the chain of command, but I have found that you will get a lot more out of the interaction, and perhaps even form an alliance if you start with the teacher first. Start with the person who is the most connected to your child first. And then if you don't get the support that you're looking for, continue to move up. But I think a lot of communication between schools and families breaks down because teachers, who are humans too, feel cornered when they don't get the information first. So that would be a suggestion. And then in a similar vein, I would really encourage you to find a point person at your school, or someone who is a safe person for you and who you don't have to keep telling your story to. You know, someone who you know understands who you are and what you're about, and can be your advocate quickly in a time of need. Becky, what you said resonates a lot with me. I am a caregiver for a neighbor of ours who lives with his grandparents. His grandparents are wonderful, wonderful humans, but they are getting up there in age, and it's hard to raise a 16-year-old boy, right? So the child that I'm speaking of also has a lot of special needs, and they just really didn't know how to be an advocate for their child. And so I have really tried to help them connect with a stable point person at the school, because it's scary for them, right, to know what to do or know what to say. And so often they've just chosen not to do anything because they didn't know what to do. And so I think for all of us, if we can have that point person, or that person that you know your child trusts, you trust, it can really be very, very helpful. Okay, so along those lines, this is small, so maybe I will change the view of this and see if it's bigger. Did that help? Is it bigger now? No. Okay. Are you seeing a email letter? Yes. Okay. So along the lines of communication, I thought that a sample might be helpful for us. So I told you about my son, whose name is Curran. And he is my son who has exceptional learning needs. Sorry, friends, I don't like that display.
That looks good, Joy.
It's better?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is a sample of a letter that I wrote to all of his teachers after back to school night in one way or another. So I'd like you to just take a second and read it. And then we're going to have a little chat about some of the themes from this communication approach. So again, this is an actual email that I sent to an actual teacher for my son who has some exceptional learning needs. Okay, so we're going to use some chat responses for this. So again, your chat can be opened on the bottom of your screen. And I'm wondering if you can consider the questions that are at the top. What do you see in this letter? What do you think about it? And what do you wonder? You can put a response to any of those three questions in the chat regarding this strategy for communicating with a classroom teacher. All right, well, we're getting our thoughts in the chat. Oh, Denise, yes, a strength-based perspective. My son Curran is perfect and beautiful and wonderful exactly as he is. That being said, he's going to need some different things to learn successfully, and that's okay. We do not need to feel bad for the beautiful ways our students are made. Thank you, Denise. Good. It was hoping to be proactive, to get out in front of it. I will tell you the response to this email was wonderful. I had teachers reach out and say, you know, if Curran needs to have a mask break, let's set up a strategy or a signal so that he can privately go outside and regroup. If, you know, Curran is needing a little bit more time on things, this is what we're going to do. So I think right from the very beginning, it showed the teacher that I'm in it, right? I'm not acting like this is all on the teacher. I'm showing that I'm here to show up to and to support my son. Good. Any other themes or questions or wonderings that you have about this approach? So this I think is a great strategy that could even help with the situation Becky was sharing. You know, I want you to know this about my niece. This is what she's bringing to the table in her beautiful life. And, you know, I would really appreciate it if you could support her in this way.
And Joy, this is Dr. K. I'm just going to pop in to say this is a beautiful example for everyone in this workshop. And sometimes parents or caregivers just need an example letter, something to get them started and absorbing this. And I love the questioning. So as you go to write or communicate, you want to look to that angle. What will the teacher see? What will the teacher possibly think? What will the teacher wonder? And for all of us on this workshop, we are all advocates in our own manner, and having a sample, this is empowering. It gives people the strength to say, I too can write a letter like this on behalf of my child or the children that I care for. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And I will tell you, I think it has made the biggest difference especially for my son who has exceptional learning needs, because I think that teachers, especially secondary teachers, they have so many students, right? And I think we also need to remember most people who are teachers went into teaching because they really care about kids. But if you can give them a head start, like, let me just tell you all the answers to my son, right? Here they are. Here's what he needs. It's really helpful, right? Like, let me give you the recipe for where we're at. And in a way that is really about partnering and not about, let me tell you how to do your job. I think we make the most growth that way. All right, any other questions or comments on this before we move to the next slide? And I know I'm going to do one more slide and then probably Senta. Yes, Dr. K? Yeah, okay. Okay, so the last thing is an internal process, right? So we talked about what we can do at our homes. We talked about what we can do partnering with the school. This last element is what we can do in our hearts and in the ways we teach our students to be a human, and the way we call on ourselves to really model those same behaviors. So we can, as mentioned earlier, talk just for a few minutes about the day. Let them know that you care about what's happening there, right? I'll tell you, sometimes they're going to tell you the most boring things, and you're just going to be like, wow, that's amazing that you had to deal with the injustice on the handball court. That must have been really hard. Wow. Or, wow, I'm so sorry that you're learning about that and it feels boring to you. Hopefully tomorrow's lesson will be better, right? So you don't have to really do anything with that information, but just soliciting it sends a powerful message that you care. I think it's also really important for you to model respect and responsibility for your children and how they interact with adults and how they interact with other students on campus. So again, from the high school frame, but even when I had younger children, it's very common for them to be like, that teacher just doesn't even like me. Or, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. The teacher doesn't even tell me. And honestly, that could be true, but it also could be that our child is just missing something in the details, right? So you can model respect by saying, well, if you're confused, what might be a good strategy? Like, what could you do? Or if I'm noticing on cue or on Canvas that you're missing a lot of assignments, what could be something that you could do to correct that behavior? So helping them take personal responsibility is really important. I think we can also model for our students what it looks like to be a lifelong learner, right? We can read books and talk to them about it. Oh my gosh, I read the most fascinating article yesterday. Let me tell you about it. We can learn new technologies. Maybe you could say to your students today, hey, have you guys ever used a Jamboard at school? I used one today in my meeting and it was so cool, right? So letting them know that you're open to learning new things, and that as participating members of this society, we are always called to learn and to grow. I think that this one is something that I really am trying to do better on. I'm committed to doing better on this one this year. And it is that idea of using a growth mindset when I talk to my kids. So we're going to want to try to avoid statements like, well, I wasn't very good at school, or, yeah, math, it's just not for me. I'm just not good at math. Or I'm not a very good artist, right? Because if we speak that into existence, then our students then have the opportunity to be like, well, look at my caregiver. they're doing just fine and they weren't very good at math, so I'm out. No math for me, right? So we want to use things like, math was hard for me when I was in school, and here's how I got better. Or, I really wish that I could keep getting better at drawing. Maybe I should look into how I can do that. So we don't want to use our words, like we talked about earlier, words are powerful, and we don't want to use our words to create barriers for our students. And then the last thing here, and then I think we'll welcome Dr. K, or no, we'll welcome Senta. Maybe Dr. K is going to introduce Senta, I'm not sure, is that we want to use the frame that the school and the faculty and the staff at the school are our teammates, right? We're all this wonderful, beautiful team that is trying to, as Dr. K loves to say, link, leverage, lift our students to their maximum capacity. We are not adversaries. We all want the best thing for everybody who shows up at the school site, just from different perspectives. So I think sometimes if we can frame our communications from that perspective, it can be really helpful. So I have a few closing things to say, but I'm going to take a little commercial break. So Dr. K, are you ready?
I am here. Thank you so much. The segue was beautiful, Dr. Springer, because you said we are all a team. We are all here together to help children succeed, whether it's within our homes, our communities, our educational school systems. So many of you have been in the previous training when we learned about how to mitigate vicarious trauma and the developing brain. And Senta Green was our presenter. Well, Senta Green also has a very deep experience and expertise and hands-on experience in the realm of education and special education. So we thought it would be a nice continuation of Dr. Joy Springer's work this day to the next workshop, which would be Monday, January 31st from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. And Senta Green will come back to build upon the foundation and scaffold the learning that we've already done with Dr. Springer. So with that being said, Senta, welcome. Thank you for stopping in to say hello. And can you let everyone know what we're looking forward to on January 31st?
Absolutely. I think you just did it, though. Super excited to be with all of you on January 31st and complement and build upon all the extraordinary information that I know you have received from Dr. J. And so super excited to continue this conversation with you. And we'll continue to talk about the impact of behavior, learning, and how that plays into interactions. But this time we're going to shift it a little bit and we're going to think about our senses. And so we're going to be talking about how children take in the world through their five senses that most of us know, which is really about taste, touch, smell, what we see, what we hear. But we're going to expand that. We're going to talk about 8 systems of sensory integration and processing. And we'll walk away with lots of strategies and ideas. And we will continue, as Dr. J said, that Dr. K says, link, left, and leverage. So I look forward to the time, and I'm so glad that I could pop on for this moment. And so continue to enjoy all that you're learning and engaging with Dr. J. I'll see you on the 31st.
Thank you, Senta. We'll see you on January 31st.
Happy New Year, Senta. Nice to see you.
Happy New Year, Dr. J. Take care,
All
everyone.
right. Thank you.
Okay, so we are wrapping up. We're in our last 10 minutes. Woo, time flies when you are having fun. All right, so I just want to recap. We talked about things we could do in our home to connect with schools. We talked about things we can do that are involvement or engagement to connect with schools. And we just talked about our personal framing and our mindset and how they can impact our interactions and how we support our students. So as our closing activity, we're going to do a jot. I'm not sure if you've heard that phrase before, but a jot is something where you are going to choose just one thing, right? J-O-T. Just one thing. And you are hopefully going to commit to incorporating that just one thing by Friday, right? Because the way we make progress in life is by committing to goals and working towards them. So I have found, and I'm sure y'all have too, that sometimes when I go to conferences or receive good information, I'm kind of overwhelmed, right? My brain is firing all over the place. So I have found this strategy of just one thing can really help me to focus and to grow in the direction I want to go. And it's also really helpful for students, right? Because they too can be overwhelmed. So we're going to do a waterfall. A waterfall is where you type your just one thing in the chat box, but you don't push enter. You just type it. So maybe my just one thing is I'm going to clear off the desk in the back of the kitchen so that my student can have a designated workspace. Maybe it's I'm going to pour through that school website, see if I can't put some calendars into my date book, right? Just one thing, not all the things, right? Just one thing we can do before Friday. So can you please type your just one thing in the chat box, but don't push enter, because we're all going to push enter at the same time. And it's going to be a beautiful waterfall of action items. So we're typing our just one thing in the chat, but we are not pushing enter. Just one thing you can do this week. All right, we'll take just about 2 more minutes to get those just one things in the chat box. All right, we're going to do our waterfall. I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and we'll all push return on the 1 and see the beautiful waterfall of action items. You ready? 3, 2, 1. I love Zoom waterfalls. It's one of my most exciting activities, right? But look at all these great ideas. Clean out the office, make materials more accessible, be more curious, ask more questions, right? I can read more, love it. I can sit with my students. I can lead by example. I can praise. Look at all these amazing ideas. I love it. I love it so much. Sleep better. Yeah, we all feel better when we get some sleep. That is true. Okay. My last offering for you, and I'm going to put this back on the big wheel, is some resources that can be really helpful when we are working with students in different capacities and different age groups. There are some different toolkits and basically Google items that you can search if you want to find some great strategies that you can use at home. If you have young kids, like I know some of you do, Milwaukee with Kids Best Ed websites is awesome. They clear their offerings to make sure they're free, educational, and safe for students every single week. So that's a really great one. For our participants who have older kids, College Greenlight and Career Village are really fabulous for planning for first generation students who are either going to go into a trade or go into college. So just some resources. I am happy. I'm going to let Dr. Kate answer to how this will happen. But yes, to Jenny's question, you are all welcome to this presentation. I'm very happy to share it. And then you can link to it directly. But if not, you can also take a picture of this because all of these are wonderful resources that can help you. And I want to leave the last 5 minutes in case you have any questions. And I also wanted to provide you with my email. If you're ever in a sticky situation and I can help, I mean it very sincerely when I say that helping all students feel welcome and supported at school is my passion and my commitment for my whole life. So if I can help you or your family or the students that you're serving, please don't hesitate to reach out. And with that, we can do questions either in the chat or coming off mute. And if you don't have any questions and you're going to log off, thank you. Thank you for caring about kids and being willing to learn and to grow to support them well. And I really wish you and yours a wonderful, healthy January. And I'm going to